story you are about to hear is true.
Springfield Dispatch.
Eddie Chavez,
You returning in service. 2122.
Ruben Nava,
AOM clear, female transport. We're in service.
and Jesse Romero.
22.
Jesus 911.
Soul Patrol, Jesus 911. We're two cops for Christ here, two retired cops. And we're here to calling you guys all the roll call, guys and gals. Roll call time.
Reporting
We're
for
10-8.
duty, sir. I'm here, 10-8.
We're 10-8. We're on duty. Our call letters, John 3:16. Nothing's going to change that. And listen up, ladies and gentlemen. Roll call time. We're going to provide you some Catholic intel, some Catholic briefing. We want to prepare you guys by the time this show's over to hit the streets and evangelize. So here it comes. Some spiritual weapons and spiritual weapons and tactics training, SWAT training here. We're going to give you some faith facts. Eddie, one of the most fascinating parts of Catholicism, especially for young people, is the area of angels and demons, the diabolical. And so this is why we have taken the time to do several shows on what our teachers in the Catholic Church teach, which are the bishops. They are the primary teachers of every diocese. And also, as a result of their office, they also are the chief exorcist of the diocese. The U.S. bishops, thanks be to God, in 2014 came out with a document. It's called Frequently Asked Questions About Exorcisms. You can print out that document for yourself. We want to just finish up the document today and obviously read the questions that people have of the bishops. We'll give the bishops answers, and we may just add some of our own 2 cents if we feel that there's more to add. So let me just jump in, Eddie, here. Number 21, here's where we left off at.
Let's do it.
Should other members of the faithful be present when an exorcism is performed? Now, here's what the bishop's saying. The bishops, plural, strongly recommends against the exorcist working in isolation, even though in rare instances this may be unavoidable. The practice of performing an exorcism in solitude should be discouraged at all cost. I'll tell you just personally, I won't mention their names, obviously, but I know 2 exorcists, very prominent, that are right now, they've been sidelined. They're not on active priestly duty because of accusations that they may have touched the victim / female possessed person improperly during the exorcism. And so this is probably the greatest reason for a priest not to pray, especially for the opposite sex or a minor by themselves. It's because, we live in such a litigious society, unfortunately, and a person who's possessed, the demon can obviously compel the person, say, hey, let's sue this guy. This guy touched you improperly. And so the exorcist or the priest doing healing and deliverance, I've in my experience, I've always seen that they always have a team.
Sure.
And now the 2 guys that I know that didn't take a team with them, they got in trouble. They're very good priests, but they've been sidelined as a result of accusations. Eddie?
And Jess, that's actually one of the functions of having a team with you is to have objective witnesses present during these things. I know that a lot of priests will even invite family members that are well formed in the faith, that know what's going on with the individual that's afflicted, so that the family members can be there and understand and witness that there is nothing unusual going on. If there's any touching, it's because it's absolutely necessary when, for example, a demon might manifest and the individual has to be held down, or even a couple of times we did this together, that the afflicted person actually attacks the priest. So that's part of the function of the team. And so that's all very normal for those things to happen. For a priest to have to do it alone, I think the circumstances are very small that it happens when there's nobody else around.
Yeah, especially if you have a violent demon, because there are some demons that are violent. I think they're called in Latin aperti, A-P-E-R-T-I. Those are I'm almost positive those are called the violent demons.
Violent demons.
And again, they'll try to attack the Blessed Sacrament. I've seen it. We've had to tackle them, or they'll try to attack the priest. Sometimes you have a mute demon, and those just put the person to sleep. They try to put him in a trance, so they just try to block the prayers of the priest.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, Nettie, what's the next one?
Okay, so number 22. That's what we're going to do here. Where should an exorcism be performed? So the norm is to celebrate the rite of exorcism. Now we're talking about exorcism in any oratory or other appropriate place. For example, small chapel, etc. Discreetly hidden from plain view. It is to the advantage of the exorcist, whenever possible, to utilize a place that is dedicated to God's honor and not the home of the afflicted person, for instance. And so, Jess, we recognize that these sacramentals, which are major and minor exorcisms, should be conducted in a place of sacredness, whether it be a church, some type of side chapel or something at a parish, instead of, for example, at the individual's home, because at the individual's home, there is always a possibility that other things are occurring at that location that are part of the afflicted person's experience and problem. Essentially, they may have something in the home that has been cursed, or something that would interfere with the individual's response to the sacred prayers that the exorcist will be doing.
Now, here's my take on this. This is a recent teaching here. This comes from the 1998 norm for exorcism. So this is a recent teaching, but it appears to me from everything I've read in times past, priests would go to people's houses and do this. And there was a reason for that. For example, the actual case of The Exorcist, it was done in a home. It was done in the boy's home.
Initially,
okay?
yeah.
Yeah, and also the case of Annalise Michel, a.k.a. the movie The Emily Rose. Right. It was done in her home, and I can see why they did that. Now, I see the advantage of the 1998 document. You have it's like in police work, you always want to have a position of advantage, as they tell us in officer survival. Make sure you see the guy's hands, have a position of advantage over the suspect, gun side back, weak side forward. And maybe you're angled off for something when you're interviewing somebody who's kind of violent. Sure. Well, the same thing with doing this inside of a church. You have a position of advantage over the diabolical because they're afraid, they have an aversion to holy objects that weakens them. However, a while back ago, I was talking to this one exorcist. I was saying, but Father, what if, and he goes, you make a good point, Jess. I said, what if you're effective with healing, deliverance, minor, major exorcism, whatever it takes to heal a person that's afflicted, then he goes back to his house and the house is infested because maybe there's, crystals or chakras or Harry Potter, who knows?
Or a cursed room or something, a cursed room, for example.
A cursed room, yeah. And there's cursed objects in the house. So what if they go back, they've been set free by the ministry of the priest, and they go back and they can get recontaminated or repossessed. He goes, you got a good point. And so, again, I think, in my opinion, the old rite says, people would go to the house. The new rite says do it in a church. In my opinion, I think it has to be done both places. I think you have to follow the old and the new rite. You got to set the person free in the church because that's where you have more power over the diabolical. But then somewhere down the line, somebody's going to have to go and bless that house. The priest is going to have to go and bless that house and reconsecrate that house to Christ. So to me, it's not either or, it's both and.
Yeah, Jess, I agree because a situation where there's been a seance or something in the home that's going to tend to
attract demons again.
Attack demons again. It's going to be an error of something that's not sacred, and so it's preferable. I think you're right in both instances to do both. You have to address both things, and that's where catechism.
That's all I'm saying. You got to address both. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and a catechist. Which the exorcist priest plays the role of in some cases, will address this. I mean, the individual has to be schooled as to what is something that is vulnerable to spiritual, there's some spiritual attraction to certain items in a house, objects, et cetera, et cetera. So catechesis plays a part in this to help the individual get rid of those things and recognize what they are. Yeah.
Number 23, you got it?
Yeah, okay. Number 23, is use of exorcism kept confidential? For the integrity of the afflicted person's reputation, as well as for those individuals who might be assisting, the preservation of confidentiality is important. It is also strongly suggested that the identity of the exorcist be kept secret, or at most known only to the other priests of the diocese, so as not to overwhelm the exorcist with random calls and inquiries. And so, Jess, this is something that we mentioned before, is that there are only a few well-known exorcists in the Catholic Church in the United States. I mean,
That'll put it out there. They'll put it.
Yeah, that are bold enough to say this is what we do. And I think that's probably a good policy, just only because there is a certain fascination that with this in this area of the church.
Yeah.
And priests are very overwhelmed by calls for people that have spiritual afflictions. And just there's also
You'll also get nuts, and you'll get just pranksters calling.
Right.
They're on because you do got a lot of anti-Catholics that are. I've got some emails just doing this show. Trust me, of pranksters that just kind of mock this whole Catholic area of spiritual warfare. So I can imagine if a priest puts it out there, the type of nuts that he would attract.
And not to mention the genuine threats, Jess, from people that are in practice of the occult. That's part of what they're trying to avoid.
Oh yeah, Father Amorth in his book says that Satanists and witches constantly try to find out who the exorcist of the diocese is, get a picture of him, and start cursing him.
There you go.
Well, yeah, right.
Okay, we'll be right back. We'll continue this topic of the USCCB's document on frequently asked questions about exorcism. Stand by. We'll be right back.
This is Terry Barber inviting you to the upcoming Spiritual Warfare Conference, January 11th and 12th at the Sacred Heart Chapel in downtown Covina. If you go to virginmostpowerfulradio.org, you can join us with that, or call us at 877-526-2151. Jesse Romero will be there, Father Wolfgang will be there, and our very own Matt Arnold will be there, and I'll be the MC. Don't miss out on this wonderful event, January 11th and 12th.
It is only because of your continued prayers and generous donations that Virgin Most Powerful Radio can broadcast live each weekday. We count on your spiritual and financial support because you understand the urgent need for Catholic programming that shares the gospel with clarity and charity, but without compromise. We desperately need to fix the bugs so you can listen live on our app or YouTube without any glitches. Plus, meet traditional broadcast standards in order to provide our exclusive programming to Catholic radio stations around the country and around the world, absolutely free of charge. As usual, we're doing it all on a shoestring budget, but we cannot do it without you. If you like what you hear on Virgin Most Powerful, I ask you to please prayerfully consider becoming a monthly donor. You can set it up with the touch of a button on our website, catholicrc.org.
Buying or selling your home or your business property? This is Terry Barber. Real Estate for Life underwrites the Terry and Jesse Show. And they can connect you to one of 900 pro-life real estate agents around the world. And when they receive their referral fee, they will give 80% of it to a pro-life organization. Wow! That's 80%! realestateforlife.org, 877-LIFE-US1.
Now, back to Jesus 911. If this call is not an emergency, dial 888-526-2151.
Welcome back.
Car.
Welcome back.
10-8, Soul Patrol. We're back.
Catholic Briefing.
The reason we're doing this, I talked to Eddie a while back ago and stuff, and I was waiting for him to retire, is because too many Catholics are like, they're asleep at the wheel regarding these issues. Too many Catholics are like the walking dead. This is all around us, and they just, to try to find out information about this, once again, they go to Hollywood, and they get a lot of misinformation. Not that everything that they put out in these shows are wrong. Some of it are in line with church teaching, but you're going to get an incomplete understanding of spiritual warfare. And so I said, Eddie, as soon as you retire, we have a little bit of a background in this. I said we could do a public service to the church and start something like this. So here we are.
Yeah, definitely, Jess. And it's true, Jesse. It's a good description about The Walking Dead, because here it is, somebody just kind of numbly walking through today's society, today's world, not knowing that they're in a battle of their life. So to bring awareness to this, to bring a recognition, give the tools for people to be able to recognize what's happening in their lives, instead of waiting for something to happen, just where they have to go and see an exorcist, and then understand and see the harsh realities of what terrible things the devil can do to a person's life. This is why we do this. This is great.
Yep. Number 24. Question to the U.S. bishops: may an exorcism be performed without the recipient's permission? Answer by the U.S. bishops: given the nature of the devil's workings and the afflicted person's possible complicity in the resulting demonic possession, the exorcist should ascertain the person's consent, if at all possible, before proceeding with the rite of exorcism. So the answer is yes. Why? Because every priest that's adept in this area that I've talked to, they said, in order for this to be effective and for healing and liberation and the ability to drive out the demon, the person must engage his total free will with the prayers. He has to consent entirely, deliberate consent to the will, so that he can be healed. Because if somebody just closes themselves off to the prayer and just makes a mockery of it, no, don't get me wrong. Jesus was able to heal anybody in the New Testament, but there's a difference. He's God. And so whether the person was asking for it or not, Jesus has complete control, over the demons. Where an exorcist, it's a gunfight. It's a chess game. Okay, they're spar. Now they have power over the diabolical in Christ and persona Christi, but nonetheless, it's a sparring session, and they're saying, okay, listen, what prayer works, what renunciation works, what litanies work. Does holy water, what's more effective, putting the stole on him? So an exorcist is like a surgeon. He's a good priest is probing to see what works. And when they find what works, then it's pedal to the metal. They say, this particular demon doesn't like the litanies of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. Let's go. Yeah. Oh, this particular demon doesn't like the litanies of Loretto in Latin. Let's go. So they're poking around to find out what it is that particular demon doesn't like. It is a chess game.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Not like Jesus. Jesus is just his presence, because he's God, it would drive out demons.
Right.
Now, I will say this. I was talking to a possessed person not too long ago. He says, the demon knows immediately. He goes, Jess, I was sitting down facing the front, and the priest walked in, and I didn't see him, but the demon inside of me sensed the presence when the demon walked in to the back of the church. He had a stole on. He had his book, his prayer book, and he was walking towards me. He goes, immediately I manifested. I never saw him because the demon reacted to this very holy priest. So they know when it's a priest and when it's not a priest.
Yeah, when the individual engages with the priest in dialogue, to be able to say, hey, yeah, I felt this happen when these prayers were said, that's essential. And it's almost just like the like people's free will in the sacrament of reconciliation. Look, when a young adult or a teen goes into the confessional to talk with a priest, because grandma made him or because mom and dad said, hey, you have to go, then the free will is not entirely engaged there. I mean, he might say, I'm going to appease mom and dad or grandma, but the reality is he has to have a contrition for his sins. And this is kind of similar to what we're talking about when it comes to the person that's afflicted by a demon, for example, being able to engage with the priest and communicate with him and actually decide that I am done with this behavior. I am done with being a slave of the devil, and I want to get over it. So this is what they're talking about here.
Yeah. No, the only exception to this, the only exception would be to a child that hasn't hit the age of reason yet, so they don't fully comprehend what's going on. And unfortunately, there are cases of child possession. In fact, oftentimes a lot of parents ritually consecrate their children to the devil, and that's not uncommon any longer, unfortunately. And so, in cases like that, I know Malachi Martin. He talks about one case specifically where he did an exorcism over a 4-year-old girl, and again, a 4-year-old girl hasn't hit the age of reason yet, so. You don't have to ask her for her consent. The priest would just do that based on the request of the parents.
And just in those rare instances,
yeah, they're probably rare on
that you just mentioned.
I hope they are.
No, yeah, exactly. But I think you're right though in that we have to remember that there's a lot of ritual occultism right now, and this is something that parents do to their kids. So that, in other words, the young children, don't have to have some kind of door open. They don't open the doors themselves. It was opened by their parents by the offering of this child's soul to the devil, for example, and so there can be some effect in that regard, but thank God they are rare.
Yeah, I hope they're rare, Eddie.
Yeah. Number 25.
I think I did the last one. You go.
Yeah. Okay, number 25. Are exorcisms the same everywhere, or are there regional and cultural differences? The rites of exorcism are to be celebrated consistently following the directives prescribed in the ritual. The rites are not to be altered at the discretion of the exorcist beyond the options clearly stated in the official text. However, before proceeding with the use of the rite, it is helpful for the exorcist to be aware of any cultural differences and regional influences that may have impacted the current state of the afflicted person. An evaluative instrument can assist in shedding light on such categories as, number one, the places where the person may have visited, either healers or mediums, psychics, etc. Number two, the practices in which the person may have been involved, whether it be cleansings from a non-sacred source, New Age religion, Reiki, etc. Even some forms of yoga, etc. Number three, the ways that the person may have opened herself directly to the dominion of the devil, whether it be magic, witchcraft, satanic worship, etc. So even though the rite stays the same, there are parts of the rite that allow for deviation and exploration into what is best used or can be used to help free this person, liberate this person from the demon.
Yeah. Also, there's a difference between the rite and just doing minor exorcism prayers or for lay people, healing and deliverance. And, sometimes aside from the actual solemn exorcism, people will modify what they're going to do with what they believe works. For example, I know lay people, Ralph Martin, Peter Herbeck, two very well-known lay Catholic evangelists and theologians, very, very eminently well-formed. They get invited oftentimes to South America, and they always want me to go. I said, I'm not interested. They go, Jess, when we go to South America, we just do parish missions. He says, we spend about an hour and a half to 2 hours after the talk just doing healing and deliverance. He says there are dozens and dozens of people that will come to our parish missions, and they'll have complete manifestations. He says we'll see people, having complete acute manifestations, and we'll just go and start praying over people. We have holy water and stuff. We're praying a lot of spontaneous prayers and stuff. He says, but it's something that you'll never forget. He goes, when you go to these third world countries, this is something very common, that right in the church, there are multiple people having complete acute diabolical manifestations.
Simultaneously.
Yeah. You can see some of them. Actually, seen some of them on YouTube with Ralph Martin and Peter Herbeck and others. And I also know in Los Angeles they do the same thing. Most people don't know. In Los Angeles, and even here in Phoenix, they at the Phoenix downtown, they do it at a theater. It's called Congreso de Sanación, a healing congress, where they bring in exorcists from Mexico, and they bring in demonologists from Mexico, and it's always done in Spanish. Again, I just think, I don't know, I think in English people are just skeptical of this stuff, and they're just like, I don't know, they're too stuffy or something. They're saying, this doesn't really happen. But in Spanish, they have these conferences annually here in Phoenix and Los Angeles. If you walked in there, your jaw would hit the floor. They're doing spontaneous healing and deliverance prayers. They do it for about an hour. And you're looking around you, you're seeing people fall left and right, people barking and howling, people on all fours, people moving like a snake, people's eyes rolling back, people dry vomiting, people shaking like they have epilepsy. It's all around you. And these are more of these kind of impromptu, spontaneous healing and deliverance, sessions that occur within the church. And I think this is happening more and more. I'll tell you why, because it's just kind of hard to find a priest one day to help you in this area. And then it's hard to find a priest that believes. Most of them are going to say, take 2 Tylenol and go see the doctor in the morning. And so a lot of lay Catholics have taken it upon themselves, saying, we've got to help each other as lay Catholics using the weapons of the church, because really we got nobody else to turn to right now. Right now, unfortunately, our clergy are busy, infighting with each other over the homosexual mafia within the church, that this is kind of a low priority with the clergy right now, Eddie. Yeah,
unfortunately, Jess, that's true. But, we have to consider, too, Jess, that our ancestry, for some reason, I don't know, maybe you can explain it, I can't, there's a certain attraction to the superstitious. I don't know. Yeah, for Latinos. And I don't understand where that comes from, or if that's even accurate. It's just been my experience that that's the case.
Latinos, Filipinos, Vietnamese, people from third world countries, they don't struggle with what like Europeans do. Atheism comes from Europe, okay? Yeah. And so they're very analytical, where third world country Catholics, they're not. They know there's spirits and demons. They know there's God. They know there's a devil. Yeah. They don't have a problem with atheism, but because third world country Catholics are poorly catechized, when they have some type of spiritual malady or spiritual illness, they'll run to the nearest person that got the picture of Our Lady Guadalupe in the storefront, or a statue of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, which is what all these shysters do, and that's how they attract them. And they'll hook them, Eddie. They'll say, oh, no, I'm Catholic, and watch, we're going to start off with an Our Father. And so it makes the Catholic feel comfortable. Yeah. Then all of a sudden, here comes the hexes, curses, and incantations right after.
Yep, I saw that so often down in MacArthur Park area of downtown Los Angeles when we would do certain stings and stuff. The Botanicas, they got to put a little statue of the Virgin Mary. Oh, here come all the Catholics. Fat, dumb, and happy. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be coming back for our third segment. You're listening to Jesus 911. Stay right where you are.
Matthew Arnold here, encouraging you to go to vmpr.org to register for our upcoming Spiritual Warfare Conference this January 11th and 12th at the Sacred Heart Chapel in Covina. Father Wolfgang will be speaking along with Jesse Romero, Terry Barber as MC, and yours truly, talking about spiritual warfare and the family. Protect your family now. Go to vmp.org and register for this conference. Don't miss it. It is only because of your continued prayers and generous donations that Virgin Most Powerful Radio can broadcast live each weekday. We count on your spiritual and financial support because you understand the urgent need for Catholic programming that shares the gospel with clarity and charity, but without compromise. We desperately need to fix the bugs so you can listen live on our app or YouTube without any glitches. Plus, meet traditional broadcast standards in order to provide our exclusive programming to Catholic radio stations around the country and around the world, absolutely free of charge. As usual, we're doing it all on a shoestring budget, but we cannot do it without you. If you like what you hear on Virgin Most Powerful, I ask you to please prayerfully consider becoming a monthly donor. You can set it up with the touch of a button on our website, catholicrc.org.
Buying or selling your home or your business property? This is Terry Barber. Real Estate for Life underwrites the Terry and Jesse Show. And they can connect you to one of 900 pro-life real estate agents around the world. And when they receive their referral fee, they will give 80% of it to a pro-life organization. Wow! That's 80%! realestateforlife.org, 877-LIFE-US1.
Now, back to Jesus 911. If this call is not an emergency, dial 888-526-2151.
Welcome back to Jesus 911. We're 10-8 giving a Catholic briefing today on on spiritual warfare. Of course, we're going over a document from the U.S. bishops regarding frequently asked questions about exorcism. Just a couple of things I wanted to address. A couple of the YouTube chatters are talking about. One is somebody says that she makes her kids go to confession, and is that okay? I wanted you to address that, but I also wanted to say this, is that when it comes to that, you have to be practical about these things. So we have to be well balanced. So it's okay if you encourage seriously your children to go to confession, but I think the purpose of it has to be explained to them, not just it's this way because I say so, but because of the different offenses that we all commit against each other and then against God, of course. So it's good to explain these things so their free will can engage in there and have contrition for their sins. Just go ahead.
Yeah, when I was a teenager, my mom and dad would tell us to go to, they would tell us, they wouldn't encourage, they would tell us, but they also added something to it which made sense to me. Okay? I remember my mom, I'm 15, 16, they'd say, if you go to confession, God is going to give you strength against temptations. You guys are teenagers. You need strength. So as a young man, I started saying, that's interesting. And I would go just like, okay, I'll go. I was just kind of an obedient young kid, but I said, strength? It's going to give me. I thought confession was forgiveness of sins, to have my sins forgiven. Well, years later, when the new catechism comes out, in I think 92, the first catechism from Vatican II, then I'm looking at it and reading the section on confession. It says that confession strengthens you. It strengthens you with sanctifying grace. So I'm like, my mom and dad did know what they were talking about. It strengthens you in virtue. It strengthens you against temptation. So if you can get your kids a confession, but however you do it, I think when you focus on the positives, don't just say you're a sinner, you're going to go to hell if you don't go. Yeah. If you focus on say, what we need? We all need to use this line. Say, Mom, Dad, say, we all need strength. We all need Jesus to strengthen us. There's a lot of temptation out there. You guys are young people. You're dealing with a lot of things coming at you real fast. You need strength. So let's go to confession as a family, because we need to get that strength inside of our soul, that strength that can only come from Jesus. So I think you could turn that kind of a negative, saying, you better go if you're going to go to hell. Yeah, exactly. I think you could turn it into a positive. You bet. I agree. And it's backed up by the new catechism, by the way. Perfect. Yeah. Okay. Number 25, in the formulas of exorcism, what is the difference between the deprecative formulas and the imperative formulas? The deprecative formulas, answered by the USCCB. The deprecative formulas are exorcistic prayers addressed to God, which request the liberation of the afflicted person. The imperative formulas are addressed directly to the inhabiting demonic spirit, commanding it to depart in the name of Jesus Christ. So what are the rules here? Generally speaking, lay people are allowed in spiritual warfare or deliverance to use deprecative formulas. For example, the St. Michael the Archangel prayer, the short form, that's a deprecative prayer. You're asking St. Michael the Archangel to come and defend us. So you're asking, okay? Now, the other imperative formulas, a priest in exorcism, specifically in a major exorcism, a priest will do imperative prayers. He's in the person of Christ, and he is ordering in the name of Jesus. He's commanding. But he'll do both. A priest in a major exorcism will do both deprecative, asking God, and imperative, I order you. Where a layperson is only authorized in deliverance to do deprecative prayers. Now, there is a difference. Mom and dad, you're allowed to do imperative prayers for your kids. That's a difference, because the house is your domestic church, and mom and dad have total spiritual authority over the children in their homes. I've done imperative prayers over my kids. I have complete authority to do that, and along with my wife. And so, based on the fourth commandment, as Father Ripperger says, the spiritual economy that God has given us, honor thy father and thy mother. Even demons know that mom and dad have the spiritual authority over the children, because the children are called to honor the parents. And that's a title of majesty, of royalty, by the way. The word honor in Hebrew is kovedah, which means to glorify, to bestow glory upon your mom and dad. So mom and dad really are like the priest and the queen mother of the house, and they have power to do deprecative and imperative prayers over their children only, not over the neighbors, not over your nephew, not down the street at Billy's house who's playing with the Ouija board. This power is only given to mom and dad in their house for their children.
And just, I think probably a lot of our viewers, Virgin Most Powerful listeners, they've done that without even knowing it, or during a blessing of their children. So, we've had our kids go on trips, something going on in their life. And so before they leave the home, go to school in the morning, take some holy water, bless her. I bless you in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. May God bless you, protect you forever. And this is, without going further into the narrative of the prayer, what you're doing is you're asking God to protect them from all evil forces. And so obviously we don't want to frighten our young children and say, this is protection from the devil and all the demons are out there. No, you want to just give them a blessing, and that way they are protected by that. So we, in essence, we've done that before, even if we don't know it. Whenever we do bless our children like that, so that's a good thing.
Because you're right, Eddie. Because when we bless our children, at maybe in the morning when they leave somewhere, and the evening when they're going to bed, a deliverance prayer, even an exorcism prayer, is known as a blessing prayer. That's the definition in theology of an exorcism prayer. It's a prayer of blessing. In other words, what's a blessing? A blessing is the opposite of a curse. A curse is when you wish evil upon another person, and you're invoking dark spirits, okay? And you say profane and vulgar things to a person, and you're invoking the power of evil. A blessing is the opposite of a curse. A blessing is you're calling upon the beauty, the glory, the love, the forgiveness, the strength of God upon a person in the name of God. So an exorcism prayer, it's known as a blessing, whether it's a major or a minor, and same with deliverance prayers. So like you said, Eddie, every mom and dad probably not realizing they've done this. They've prayed a prayer of blessing / deliverance without even knowing it.
And just let's extend that just a little bit further. So parents have the certain spiritual rights over their children. Now, also in your home, it's possible that you may need at some point to bless the home itself. So during this list of 28 questions that we've gone over the last 4 episodes, there's certain things that occur, the blessing I should say the cursing of certain objects and places. Well, guess what? As a parent in your home, you have great power by using the sacramentals, for example, in blessing the homes, going from room to room of your children in your own home, in the family room, in the living room, in the kitchen, and blessing that, because using the sacramentals, not only our prayers, but the prayers of the church are introduced into the area where that form, that matter is, the salt or the holy water, the prayers of the church, while you're doing your blessing as a parent in that home, you are also invoking the prayers of the church in those different rooms. So we actually have the ability to bless places and objects as well as our children.
By the way, if you want to know what the definition of deprecative means, I'm looking at dictionary.com. It says deprecative prayer, quote, to pray for deliverance from. To pray for deliverance from. Yep. So, again, the classic deprecative prayer that lay people should have at the ready, they should have in their gun belt, is the short form of St. Michael the Archangel prayer. That's the classic deprecative spiritual warfare prayer.
Absolutely.
Okay, number 26.
Okay, so that would be the when would each be used question,
Yes.
Jess? Okay, so when would each be used? And this is referring, and it kind of segues from what we were talking about now. It says the deprecative formulas and the imperative formulas are presented as sets in the rite of exorcism, with the deprecative formula always being used first, with the option of using the imperative formula. Now, remembering that, of course, the deprecative formulas may be used without the imperative formulas, but the opposite is not permitted. So the imperative, the direct commanding of a demon to leave, is particularly specifically for the priest, and so it allows the priest to start off with the lower ammunition, so to say, the lower weaponry, and then if necessary, go on to the to the major stuff. And so
it's like a crescendo. A priest is working his way up. He just doesn't want to get in the devil or the demon's face immediately. He works at it starts off with litanies, starts off with deprecatory prayers, and he works to the point where he says, okay, it's time now. It's time for the confrontation.
And those are called the diagnostic prayers that some priests do, Jess. It's a diagnostic. So it's just like a doctor will take a blood panel from you and scan the entire, red and blood cells, white blood cells, all the different enzymes in your body. The priest says certain diagnostic prayers to see if there's a reaction by the individual who may or may not be afflicted by a demon. May just be experiencing some minor temptation or oppression, and otherwise, if there is a great reaction, then that diagnostic prayer becomes something that is telling to the exorcist, to the priest, that he can act on and then engage some stronger prayers, which would be the imperative prayers that they're talking about.
It's like opening the hood and a mechanic diagnosing the engine to see what's wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
That's the way they poke around with certain prayers to see what type of reaction they have and to see if it's a violent demon, to see if it's a mute demon. Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Jesus 911. We're up to the last segment. We're going to go over the last question or two when it comes to this document from the bishops, the U.S. bishops, on the frequently asked questions about exorcism. Stay right with us. We'll be right back for the last segment.
This is Terry Barber. I want to invite you to the Spiritual Warfare Conference coming January 11th and 12th at the Sacred Heart Chapel. It's going to be fantastic. I want to encourage you to sign up by going to virginmostpowerfulradio.org. One of the speakers is sitting right next to me, Matthew Arnold. Matt, what are you going to be telling our folks about?
I'm going to tell them about my journey into the Catholic Church, because in my younger days, I was in the entertainment business. I was all involved with cult beliefs and practices like tarot cards and astrology and even channeling. And I had my own brush with the demonic.
Wow. Not only Matt, but Father Wolfgang from the Opus Angelorum, popular priest, he's welcome back. And our friend Jesse Romero, my partner on the Terry and Jesse show, will be there. Don't miss it. Go to virginmostpowerfulradio.org or call us at 877-526-2151.
It is only because of your continued prayers and generous donations that Virgin Most Powerful Radio can broadcast live each weekday. We count on your spiritual and financial support because you understand the urgent need for Catholic programming that shares the gospel with clarity and charity, but without compromise. As usual, we're doing it all on a shoestring budget, but we cannot do it without you. If you like what you hear on Virgin Most Powerful, I ask you to please prayerfully consider becoming a monthly donor. You can set it up with the touch of a button on our website, catholicrc.org.
Buying or selling your home or your business property? This is Terry Barber. Real Estate for Life underwrites the Terry and Jesse Show. And they can connect you to one of 900 pro-life real estate agents around the world. And when they receive their referral fee, they will give 80% of it to a pro-life organization. Wow! That's 80%! realestateforlife.org, 877-LIFE-US1.
Now, back to Jesus 911. If this call is not an emergency, dial 888-526-2151.
Welcome back to Jesus 911. We're up at the last segment of the week for Jesus 911. Jess, let's go to the next question so we can get this done.
Let's rip right through this. We're almost done. Number 27. When would the rites contained in the appendices be used and by whom? Here's what the bishops say. The prayers of the supplication and exorcism found in Appendix 1, it says, a supplication and exorcism, which may be used in particular circumstances of the church, may be likened to the prayers that Pope Leo XIII appended to the previous rite of exorcism in 1890. The focus of these prayers is to address and remedy any demonic influence on the places and things in particular, as well as to remedy attacks against the church in a more general way. As in the case of a major exorcism, the ordinary minister of these prayers would be a priest appointed for this person or the bishop himself. The prayers and invocations that comprise Appendix 2, supplications which may be used by the faithful privately in their struggle against the powers of darkness, are intended for general the use of the clergy and of the lay faithful in combating the temptations of sin or spiritual attacks by the devil. That's kind of a wonky answer. Well, all they're talking about is the new rite that we got received under Pope John Paul II, and some of the prayers have been changed, they've been modified. A lot of exorcists have complained about this new rite. They say they took away an AR-15 and gave us a 38 6-shot, and so that's something that's way above lay people's heads. This last question, all I could say is that most exorcists that I know right now, Pope Benedict gave them permission to go back to the AR-15, the old rite. And most of the guys that I know went back to the old rite because they say the new rite is very weak.
Watered down a little bit, like the catechesis has been going on for the last 50 years around.
Yep.
Just there's a question that I wanted you to address on the
number 20. It's the same thing, so we can just how would a bishop or pastor appropriately recommend Appendix 2 to a member of his flock? That's more for a priest. So we're done with that.
Yeah.
What we got any questions, Eddie, from the chat?
Yeah, let me just pose this one. Once somebody's asking about praying for their grandchildren, does somebody have the same authority over their grandchildren that they do with their own children? Now, certainly we know we could pray for our grandchildren, but what's the church's answer on that, Jess? As far as grandparents, I don't think it would not be identical to the authority that a parent has over their own children. However, I'm sure there's some wiggle room there, because if you have grandchildren living in your home, for example, or the parents are not fulfilling not fulfilling their obligations, yeah.
Mom and dad have spiritual authority over their children. Nobody can bypass that. Not the in-laws, not their parents. Okay. However, you just said something very key. What if they're living under your roof? Now you do have spiritual authority over them, because your house is your domestic church, and there's a bloodline connection. They're not like Syrian refugee foreigners in your house. There's a bloodline connection. A. Number B, your kids are probably will allow you to pray for them. They probably have no problem for it, so the parents would consent that mom and dad, you can pray for them, healing prayers, deliverance prayers, And number 3, the house is your domestic church, so you definitely have the advantage. You definitely have, as they say in the military, you've got the higher ground.
Let's delve into this just a little bit too, because it's important, I think. Now, I know some very zealous Catholic grandparents who, in the event their own children are dropping the ball with their grandchildren, they might try to intervene in such a way that that maybe is not in total alignment with what the parents are teaching. So I can imagine somebody, for example, saying some prayer over their grandchildren at their home, and in some way trying to correct some faulty teaching or something that the children are giving. So we have to be careful in that we don't create some kind of conflict between what the children are learning. And hopefully they are learning, and what we would like them to know right away. So remember, it's in God's time where these things are going to happen. I know grandparents like to push forward and try to do things in a quicker way, because obviously their influence on children is limited. They've lived through their own raising of their own children, and they know that the children grow fast. So we have to tender that zealousness to get the children in line with the church.
You got to respect your kids,
absolutely,
and they're going to make mistakes and stuff. Just pray for them. Pray especially, of the gifts of the Holy Spirit. They all received this wisdom. They received wisdom at baptism, and it was strengthened even further at confirmation. Just pray that your kids have the spirit of wisdom, as King Solomon said, that I may know how to govern Israel. Pray for wisdom for your children, that they may know how to govern their family as Christians. So that's and don't be overbearing on them, because you had your chance already, and whatever you did or didn't do, it's over. So don't try to live through them.
Yeah,
you can counsel them. I mean, the Bible says, give wise counsel. You can share your mistakes. That's the way of imparting wisdom, but you got to know your boundaries as well. Eddie, I want to mention one more thing. I think that'll be of interest to all of this. What type of demons manifest when somebody has a diabolical manifestation? Okay, here's the 3 things that happen when a demon manifests in a person. The first thing the demon tries to do, and exorcists call this in Latin abditi. Okay, when a demon when a priest through a major or minor exorcism or deliverance, or they're trying to have the demons disclose themselves, or what's called manifest, the demons, they'll hide themselves. Okay, and sometimes they'll hide themselves for an hour or 2 hours. That's called abditi. That means that these demons are hiding themselves, and they're resisting the prayers. Exorcists say that demons could take this abditi
tactic,
nature or posture for up to 2 hours of an experienced exorcist before they're forced to reveal themselves. Now, when they're forced to reveal themselves, they manifest in only 2 ways. They either become what's called a glossy demon, or they become an apurdi demon. So what's a glossy demon? A glossy demon causes the possessed person, or the person that's demonized, to close their eyes. They'll roll them back, and they'll enter into a trance. That's called the glossy demon. So at first they're abditi demons. They're resisting. Once they're forced through prayer to disclose themselves, they either go glossy or apurdi. Those are both Latin words. Glossy means they close their eyes. They'll close the eyes of the person that's demonized, or their eyes will roll back, and they'll enter into a trance, literally in a trance. Or the demon will become an apurdi demon, which means the demonized person will keep their eyes open, and they're kind of in a trance, but their eyes are open, and now they're angry. There's looks of anger. There's looks of rage. They're violent, and they're loquacious. They talk and shout and scream. So those are, once the demon tries to hide themselves, that's called the act of the demons become abditi in Latin.
Yes.
But the exorcist is pounding away the priest with prayer. Then they either manifest in one of 2 ways, glossy or apurdi.
And there has to be very consistent prayer from a team that's there when this thing's occurring. We have to understand that because the demon is manifesting in a certain way, and this is just obviously for team members, that we don't increase our volume, our tone. We have to increase the sacredness, the focus of our prayer during those times, because this is when it's most effective. Just another question on the YouTube chat. I want to address these because this is so important. Is this would we recommend the book An Exorcist Explains the Demonic by Father Gabriel Amorth? And I think that my answer would be yes.
Everybody should have.
Everybody should know it,
that book in
because
their house.
knowing the tactics of the enemy, knowing how the enemy works, is how this country has even fought wars in the past. So to be engaged in this battle fully, to know it, to be effective in it, we have to understand the tactics of both sides and the best methods by which we can defeat the other side. I would absolutely recommend that book, and have people remember to read it and understand it in a good, humble way. Not because all of a sudden now we're going to go, start praying over people that are outside of our authority. No, it's to understand, and for our own lives, how we can better manage temptation, how we can better manage our sin, etc.
Yeah, anything written by Father Amorth, it's the top of the food chain in spiritual warfare. He's got 3 books out, so I'd pick up all 3 and put them in my shelf. They're not that thick. They're a quick read. They're a little over 100 pages. Also, anything written by Father Antonio Fortea, I would pick up anything from him, or anything written by Father Chad Ripperger. Those are the 3 right now that are putting out a lot of written material, and they're all professors of exorcism. So they're like, again, that's the top of the food chain in the Catholic Church. Here's the last thing I want to mention. As we went through this 28 Catholics, you can go to the USCCB website and get this document yourself and read it. It's just good basic catechesis. A lot of spiritual warfare is basically this. It's not a silver bullet. It's trying to get the person that's demonized to come back into a right relationship with Jesus Christ and live in a state of grace, to make a good confession and free himself from mortal sin, and to keep walking in God's grace. That's what it is, and that's what a major, a minor deliverance prayers is. You're walking through the person back to the footsteps of Jesus Christ in the Catholic Church and teaching them how to live in a state of grace. There's no magic to this. This is it. This is the bread and butter of spiritual warfare. Get them, and that's why there's another book. It's called by Lorenzo Scupoli. It's called Spiritual. It's in my shelf. It's called The Spiritual. A very famous book by Tan, The Spiritual Conquest, I think. Yeah, and that book talks about again how to live in a state of grace. That's what how to fight concupiscence and temptation. And if you do that, you will never have a problem with demonization. And just that's why you and Terry do the Terry and Jesse show, and you bring out the mistakes, the misnomers that are out there in the Catholic world, because it's a lack of catechesis that's gotten us into trouble over the last 50 years. Even amongst our bishops and priests. Exactly. And so that mute of the bishops coming out with very powerful and precise teachings is part of the problem. So that's why we're glad that Virgin Most Powerful is doing what they're doing, Jess. That's for sure. Amen. Well, we're 10-7. We're off duty. But we've given you a lot of intel, a lot of information to put in your war bag. So we expect you guys. Time to roll out there, hit the streets and evangelize. And remember, there's only 2 ways to live: state of grace or a state of mortal sin. That's it. Ladies and gentlemen, we expect you to go out there and hook and book, spiritually speaking, okay? Go put those things into play. All right, we'll be back next week, God willing. You're listening to Jesus 911, and you're going to... Up next, Hands on Apologetics with Gary Machuda. I think I see the front door of the dojo opening. Stand by, we'll be right back.
St. Augustine once wrote, "Question the beauty of the earth, question the beauty of the sea, Question the beauty of the air spread around everywhere. Question the beauty of the sky, the sun making the day glorious with its bright beams, the moon tempering the darkness with its shining rays. Question the animals that move through the waters and amble about on dry land. Question all these things. They all answer you, here we are. Look, we're beautiful. Their beauty is their confession. Who made these beautiful, changeable things, if not one who is beautiful and unchangeable? All creation shouts to us that there's a God, and just as a painting gives us a glimpse into the heart of an artist, all creation tells us that God is beautiful. But if we don't take time to question the beauty all around us, we won't hear that. So stop and smell the roses. I mean that literally. God wrote 2 books, Scripture and Creation. We should spend time reading both. This is Chris Stefanik from RealLifeCatholic.com.
Virgin Most Powerful Radio, sharing the gospel with clarity and charity.
And now, Virgin Most Powerful Radio is pleased to present Hands-On Apologetics with renowned Catholic author and apologist, Gary Michuta.
Greetings, everyone. Welcome. It's good to be back. I love the theme song. It reminds me of some sort of like what do you call it? Like cardio exercise music. And, this is kind of like intellectual exercise music, so let's think of it that way. Welcome, I'm Gary Michuta, and you have entered into Virgin Most Powerful Radio's Apologetics Dojo, where the rubber of catechesis meets the road of everyday life. And we've had a tremendous week coming up to Christmas. Lots of great gifts, lots of excellent speakers and guests and things like that. And today we're going to finish with a bang. We have a person I greatly admire. He's master apologist, and this is he's returning back to the dojo. So we should give him some sort of honorary guest sensei gi or something like that. Karlo Broussard is coming to the program today. Oh yes, Karlo. I love Karlo. And we're going to be talking about relativism. Something that's and the whole story of the Deuterocanon and how it eventually this divide kind of happened, at least within Christianity, really centers around a saint named Saint Jerome. You're all familiar with Saint Jerome. Well, Pope Saint Damasus plays a very important role in that. So that's what's going to be our early church father for today. That's going to be lots of fun. And also, if you want to join the program, especially with Karlo coming on, Karlo, he can handle anything. Trust me. Give us a call at 888-526-2151. That's 888-526-2151. We'd love to have you on the show. Maybe somebody that's steeped in relativism, or maybe your kids have kind of a relativistic attitude. Carlos definitely will help out. Absolutely. Also, if you're maybe a little shy to call up, you can always email us your questions at handsonapologetics.com. Handsonapologetics.com is my website. And if you just email to questions at handsonapologetics.com, I'll see it and I'll respond to it. And maybe even, who knows, maybe it will be part of the Dojo Mailbox episodes and we can address these different things. And before I forget, it's time to give a warm Dojo welcome to those watching on live stream on Facebook and YouTube and any other. I know those are the two live streams. Maybe there's other ones, but greetings, everyone. It's always good to see people on social media because really, in a way, you guys are the lifeblood of this network. Virgin Most Powerful, we need your prayers, but we also need you to kind of spread the word, be evangelists, let people know about the programs here. Because it'd be a shame if we have somebody awesome like Karlo Broussard on the show and talking about a topic that a person really needs to know and not even know that this program's out there or exists. So please, if you could, please share us with your friends, mention us on social media, like us, do all those social things, thumbs up, all the emoticons that come to your mind. And we really appreciate it because, like I said, it's Virgin Most Powerful Radio is here because of you. And so we're both working together to spread the gospel. All right, well, let's jump to our finding the fallacy, which, like I said, is actually a propaganda technique. And this technique is called accusing the opponent of one's own faults. And basically, the title kind of says it all. What it is if there is a weak point in somebody's repertoire, or perhaps a politician who knows that they have done something wrong that could be exposed and damaging. Well, this technique happens when they accuse their opponent of that very same thing. Now, why this is effective is because if the opponent turns around and says, yeah, but look at you, you're accusing me of X, but you're doing X, in a far greater scale, then the response is, well, this is just tit for tat. This is, this person is just, getting political and trying to change the issue. And it's a great way to brush off your opponent by accusing them of basically your own faults or own bad things that could be embarrassing. And that happens all the time. All the time. People will accuse other people of the things they're doing. And then when they blow the whistle, it's like, well, that's just tit for tat politics. We could ignore the whole thing. And what happens is they get off scot-free. Well, that's not only true for politics, but it's also true in religious dialogues, Sins or the same thing that, item in their apologetics that may be weak. And then just say, well, so that's our finding the fallacy for today. Like I said, it's a propaganda technique. It's accusing the opposition of its own faults. And without further ado, why don't we jump to the early church fathers? Early church fathers. The text kind of deteriorated. Jerome says that there were as many copies or variants of Scripture as there were copies. Okay, so Pope St. Damasus said, we'll commission St. Jerome do a fresh translation from Hebrew and all the Greek manuscripts and kind of reassert the credible text. So that eventually becomes the Latin Vulgate. Okay, and so it's through Pope St. Damasus I that the official Latin translation of the scriptures came about. And by the way, this is a type of translation that is still used by the church. So whenever church documents also some encyclicals that are available from him. And again, these things are very, very good reading material if you get a chance. I also probably should mention that the reason why Pope St. Damasus I commissioned Jerome was because he was one of the scholars who had a great Jerome actually becomes the Grinch that steals the Deuterocanon. We could put it that way. So it's an interesting story that although Jerome was an excellent scholar and he's doing this fresh translation, that was really the first time in Christian history where the Deuterocanon becomes known as Apocrypha. It's really through St. Jerome, of all people. So that's our early church father for today, is Pope St. Damasus I. And like I said, he reigned roughly about 366, 384. This is during the golden age of really Christian writing. This is the time where St. Augustine, he was a contemporary of Augustine, contemporary of Jerome, contemporary of many, some of the biggest names in church history lived around this time. So. Broussard, you can always give us a call at 888-526-2151. We'd love to have you on the air. And you can also email, by the way, questions@handsonapologetics.com. But, of course, I won't be able to see that during the program. So it's preferred that you call in. Or if you're live stream on YouTube, I have the feed right here. If my eye catches it, I might throw it into the fray. You never know. All right, coming up next, Karlo Broussard. Do not want to miss this coming segment.